Okay. Morning. Today we'll be just talking about storytelling, story writing, and story selling. Story selling. There are the 3 points which we'll try and discuss. What is storytelling, story writing, story selling? What we are doing throughout our life, we are telling story to each other, either as a child or as an adult. Every time we keep telling a story. Even if when you go to SSB is nothing but storytelling itself and amounts to story selling, because until unless you are able to sell your personality to the assessor will not be able to in a position to assess you. So the total fundamental things are involved. One equals storytelling, story writing, and then finally the word has come, as in the case of commercial world, it is the story selling. If anyone who wants to sell a product, he must sell that product. How can he sell? He has to inculcate in the mind of the customer that the product that is being offered to him is the best for him and it will help him. Similarly, if you want to make a dent, in any interview or in SSV, so first and foremost, you must have a content, that you must have good personality. But that personality is of no use unless you are in a position to tell that you have got that personality. That telling is in the two way. When an interviewing officer is asking you a question, you are telling him a story. You are telling him a story. He is asking you what was your percentage in 10th, which teacher you liked, and all sorts of questions. That is CIQ, that is the comprehension question that he asked on there. In the case of psychologist, you are telling story writing. You are writing a story and that is being read by the psychologist. And then you are performing. You are performing in the case of GTO. So all three techniques, either you are storytelling, story writing, or when you are doing something, that in the case of GTO, what are you doing? Your story is being read by him, is it or not? So it's like a book, and that book, when you read any book, any book around there, you get engrossed into it. So when you're performing a GTO task, I mean the GTO looks at you. He should get impressed that yes, he's impressed that this gentleman is the right material. Because when you read a good novel, you get literally engrossed, and you also flow along with the character that are involved. Is it or not?
Yes, sir.
That is the case, no? Now let's say, so storytelling is the joy that arises from seeing harm to others. That is not. That is a standard fluid. Now the problem is, a captivating story captures your attention and you are immersed in the tale and adventures of the character who are involved, which inspires, motivates, or make you reflect on your own reality. Story have that unique power to connect, teach, and even inspire action. There are two distinct approaches emerges: storytelling and story writing. Story writing. In between, and story selling. I said story writing, I have not written here, but there are 3 parts as a matter of fact: the storytelling, story writing, and story selling. There are 3 words. Now, this word story selling has come back due to the commercial world. Today, even if you go for a movie, what happens? You are seeking information. The world has changed so much. You are not going to know. Earlier, we used to go to cinema hall, we sit around, we used to enjoy the content of the cinema. Today, you are looking at every aspect as more of information than anything else. We have all got connected to the computer and all these smartphones. Earlier, a child used to sit in the lap of the grandmother and they used to listen to the story. And they used to keep asking old story, new story, and all those things. Those things are gone. Neither the child has got time, nor the mother has got, or grandmother has got, are coming up to the standard that new generation wants. So both are in a different field. So at its core is storytelling is about creating an emotional connect. With whom? With your audience. When you are talking to your interviewing officer, what you are doing? You are trying to connect to him with it or not?
Yes, sir.
And it is about bridging the gap. Gap between what you want to intend to say and what he expects you to say. That's a gap. Okay. Sharing experiences. When you're talking about your past, present, and future, how what your past around there and what your vision for the future, then you're sharing experience, isn't it? Inside, values that you have got it. Okay. To a compelling narrative. The focus lies in engaging the ideas. In this case, your assessor. In the case of SSV, in the case of assessor. Leaving with a lasting impression or new perspective, indicating that you are the best person to be selected. If you can do that, that's the end of it. The key element in any storytelling is the character development. So in your case, when you tell a story to interviewing officer, or when you are discussing anything in group discussion, group planning, you have to indicate that you are the best character available. Related characters who the audience can connect with. So when you talk, I must understand, assessor must understand what you want to convey. Second, emotional journey, evoking feeling like joy, curiosity. That is what is come. Authenticity. What we speak, it should be authentic. And lastly, open-ended living space. So now, reflection. You must reflect back in our life. I always maintain we are humans. We are humans.
Yeah.
We cannot be perfect. We cannot be perfect. Only God is perfect. And in God also, in the Raja Purushottam is only called Purushottam, Purushom Uttam. Not even Krishna is called Purushottam. Not even Krishna. Because Krishna could Sam done the bed, anything he could afford to employ any time. So, in lesson for storytelling, we must tell a story with fair complexity, flow, adequate details, positive, happy ending within a specified time that has been given to you. And consistently, not only once you have told, with low fluctuation, with themes we intend to sell. I'm saying with theme into you have got a theme which you want to convey to the assessors in the case of SSB. Storytelling performance is based on past event, past knowledge, and experience. We must learn to narrate a story with ample imagination, and we talked about different types of imagination, isn't it? We talked about different.
Yes.
We'll be covering up this in a subsequent video on imagination and application for intended success. And as a matter of fact, lately in strategic storytelling has been enlisted to change the attitude and behavior. Olympians prepare mentally for the performance, so we can also do it. Do understand effective release of that three, no, we call it cortisol. There are three chemicals which are released in our body. Cortisol prevents, no, it creates a problem for us. It's a stress hormone. Dopamine gives me happiness. It gives me happiness. Oxytocin, one of the table, no, in a vegetable, you must have seen lately, this oxytocin has been banned because what in the Loki, they have to put one injection and the Loki, it used to, in one day, it used to grow. So that's the same, like these chemicals are released into our system. Now let's come back to the story writing. Story writing, you must have characters, setting, plot, theme, and conflict. That's how any story, I'm talking in general. Why? Because you're going to write a story in TAT. Correct? Similarly, you are going to write certain sentences in WAT. And they are going to write certain thing in certain your reaction in the SRT. So the problem comes up. You must create a character. No story complete without a character. And a story should evolve and revolve around the character itself. So it depends upon what personality, what character you want to show, your character or that or hero that you have selected must have those characteristics which you want to show. Setting. Until there's a setting now, setting is the where should the story should be there. It should be common. It's a physical surrounding in which you have set a story. Normally, as far as SSB is concerned, it should setting as far as possible should be outdoor because you are supposed to be joining services, isn't it? Okay, and you as a hero, you should be able to contribute in the setting the story. Okay, it is up to you as an individual who is the writer to include all the details that you think would make the story more colorful. Unless you make your story interesting, no one would like to read it, isn't it? So the next is plot. Plot a story refers to what goes in the story, for what the story was about. Now, in our case, in the case of SSB, plot has to be what? Plot is in such a way that I am able to reflect or bring out my 15 qualities. Qualities, isn't it? So until that hero performs, those 15 qualities will never come. Then what? Comes a theme. Theme, what you must understand what you want to convey. End result must be there. Aim. If aim is not clear, then that's of no use. Finally, conflict, because when you make a story, there has to be certain thing from where to start. So it means there is a situation. There is a situation. And situation has to have a problem. And until there is a problem, you will not react. There cannot be any plot. So the problem will be such which you can resolve. Is it? And it has to be day to day. So any format story must have format of the story. It must have beginning. It must have end, middle, and end up. Is it or not? So in past, present, and future. Beginning of the story is what will determine if the reader would want to continue reading. I'm talking about in general. I'm saying in general. So looking at the first story, just when you look at the first, when you have to read a book, what you flip through the pages. You flip through the pages. Looking at the copy, it's okay. Yeah, I read the preface, then probably one or two, and okay, it's good. Let me go through it. So until your beginning itself is not good, no one would be interested in reading the book. Similarly, if the story start itself is fatal, probably the story will go into the own direction. Middle is what? Middle, it is the action part of it. Through the hero meanders, solving all the problems. And in meandering through the various situation, he is the person who is bringing out his qualities. So when you write a story, you must be very clear about the language. You must have literary sense. There must be a certain amount of complexity in the plot itself. Okay. And end is what? You must wrap it up. Rapidly end it, close it. Summary. What is the effect that the story is going to have? You must ensure the story, the ending is that what it deserves. You should be able to talk about future, what impact you have gotten. Story is not description. Not description. Okay. Now next. So that what is takeaway from TAT is to create a compelling, well-rounded character that comes across as genuine. Must be genuine. And interesting. Until it is interesting, it is of no use. No use. Okay? That story that you read must resonate with the reader. And in our case, the assessor who are there. Okay. So it is important that character must strike a chord with the reader. And in this case, assessor. And able to craft someone who feels realistic. because their motivation and behaviors are modeled on the way the real people think. You cannot create a character out of sky. In the next world, you have to create a character what exists on the earth or what is possible in our scenario. So you must come in a narrative. You must be come in narrative in the telling story mode. Narrative and with adequate paradigmatic mode to write a story with imagination. We did talk about we have got memory, then we got mental imaginary, then we got visualization, and then we have got what we call imagination. Is it? That's how the whole things go. Yes. So until unless you come to the imaginative mode, and the imagination itself are different types. So what you're trying to do it now, by coming to narrative mode, you are creating a virtual text for the assessor. The assessor must think that it is my story. It is my story. So what you can think the assessor as the slate on which you are writing, or the paper on which you are using a beautiful pen, and with a beautiful handwriting, you are writing onto your head. Character in action must be clear, intention and goal, empower ourselves with adequate culture to it. So a story should be within the cultural toolkit of our society. Central character must play the role as a hero and not a false hero or helper or a villain and so on. Narration must depend on forms of discourse that recruits assessor, that enlist in the performance of meaning under the guidance of the text. So what you are forcing me as an assessor to think in your own way, in your way. That is your aim has been very, very clear. We call it trafficking human possibility. Trafficking means you should talk something what is possible, something possible, not impossible, not impossible. Okay. Now, so the lessons are there. A good story should have the following characteristic: plot, conflict, character, setting, and theme. Plot is the sequence of events that make up the story. Conflict is the struggle that the protagonist, that the hero, must overcome. Characters are the people who populate the story. The other characters are involved. Create a compelling, well-rounded character that come across as genuine and interesting. Character must be realistic and strike chord with the assessor. Story should convey a target audience, in this case, assessor, how well you think, feel, and behave through the action of the character, because that's the only way you can do. Create issues, problem definition for the characters initially, then through the variety of action, twists and turns, issues are finally resolved. That's how the problem. Or at least the character is in the path of resolution. You may not. At least that's the best you could do. This comes down to instinct and experience. And so it is there will be character flaws. It is important to writer to determine the kind of early message character that you want to give. So it means this is how this comes in. Next, third part is called story selling. You are a good person. You have a good personality. You got a good personality. And your thought process are good. But unless you bring it out, until you market your personality, would it be of any use? Best of the product can only be sold if it is sold properly. It's a commercial world, isn't it? Yes. So until you speak, interviewing officer will not know who you are. Until you write, psychologist will not understand what you are. And until you perform in GTO tasks, he will not understand what is the type of person you are. So storytelling leverages the power of storytelling to influence behavior and drive action. For example, you must influence the assessor to accept you as the right material for service. Is it or not? Yes, sir. It uses narrative and situation which showcases the value proposition of product. In our case, is the personality. My product is personality. Is it or not? and service, your usefulness to the services that you're going to be part of. Focusing on convincing the audience or the assessor in the case of SSB that a story solution aligns with their need and desires or is the solution to their problem. Am I right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, so the key element in this story selling, not the story selling, is problem solution narrative, highlighting a relevant problem and offering a clear solution. Strong call to action until you act either in the story or you act while performing in terms of GTO or in case of interviewing officer. Data and evidence. You must give evidence that you are the right man. And you must tell yourself, that's like brand making, that's a commercial making. So you must be a brand. You must sell yourself as a brand. Yes, you are the best person who must be accepted. Okay. So story telling is ideal for building brand awareness. Brand awareness. So you must, when you tell your story, you are the best person. But when you sell your story, you are signing your price. Signing when you need to drive conversion, promote specific products in the case of personality, or influence purchasing decision, your selection. So the problem, you may be the best person, but unless you communicate well, both in writing and in verbally and working, besides bringing out all your contribution to yourself and to the society, and what makes you think that you are the best person to select it, you must be in a position to bring it out. The synergy of storytelling and story selling is, while distinct, they are different. Storytelling is your kahani kahana. I must sell. While distinct, these approaches can complement each other beautifully. Authentic storytelling can augment the story selling by adding an emotional connection and making it more persuasive. Similarly, adding a clear call to action in your storytelling can nudge assessor towards desired outcome that your selection. At the end of the day, it is the most powerful narrative that are able to perfectly balance both yet strike a chord with the target audience, in this case, the assessors. Connect with your assessor, engage them with your story, and then go ahead and tell your story, sell your stories, but most importantly, make them fascinating. Make them
fascinating.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's no use. Whatever you do, that has got no use. Okay. Now, so what is that? Now look at it. There's a gentleman, no? It's a German star.
Filmmaker.
He is the person who says no. What he says? We live in an era of enormous changes. Storytelling is disappearing. No one is in a position to tell a story. Unfortunate. You have seen Anurag, you have seen in your case 12 stories that you've written around there. You are unable to tell a story. Instead, storytelling, we have got story selling. सबका product बेचना चाहता है. Fake product. So until the product itself is perfect, the fake selling can last for once, twice, but it cannot last long. We are used to dealing with every image as information. Movies have also become information because we like it. We are now looking at now on our mobile. We don't enjoy. Earlier, we used to go to the cinema hall and then we look at the movie. Correct? We have handed our memories to the phone and computer. Cinema, of course, is a part of that change for a whole new generation. This is what had just a few days back, only one of the very he was German person who came back to Calcutta, and his name is filmmaker Wim Wenders. He was the person who was there. I just read in the paper. He further highlighted how medium of viewing the alter. If you see a film on your mobile phone, you see something else. Movie no longer have the innocence of storytelling. We are all losing patience for storytelling because story needs time. And today, John, you want immediately. Abhi chahiye, abhi chahiye. I want result immediately. Yes or no? And that
Yes, sir.
immediate result, 0 and 1, either a pass or fail, and that creates a problem. We start looking at movies as just another source of information that changes the entire ball game. So what you are really concentrating now to pass, how would you pass? Unless you tell your story, until you write a story, and then only you can sell. So he also expressed, no, I'm amazed at how people in India still see movies in theater. You remember, one of the very primary, Vishnu Sharma, he wrote the Panchtantra. They are still one of those oldest storybook in the history. And today, in after 2010 onward, there's a WHO has recognized storytelling as a strategic importance of strategic importance. So now, what we were doing thousands years back, people are realizing now, and so we must really understand how to go about it. When we wrote the first book with my partner, I did not know even I was not aware of it. But our very first book, a Decoding Subject Selection, we wrote it around there. We started with a story on 6-7 stories. We started with the Cliff Young, Ratan Tata, Story of Eagles. I'm talking 13 or 14. Dinosaurs, cockroach, geese, Ganesha, and all sorts of many stories. I did not know. I do not know to the word of importance of chemicals like cortisol, oxytocin, dopamine, and all part of things. We came to know later on. But what he says, if inference from interaction is then how do we pass? The problem comes up. How do we ensure that we are the thematic of person test and interview? If a student is confident of himself and his personality, he has the tendency to write good story with fair complexity, flow, adequate details, and positive, happy ending, with a specific time frame for 12 story with low fluctuation.
Fluctuation.
This in turn demonstrates most of the personality traits required to be tested to be an officer. And this releases, once you start, this releases oxytocin. I have written 12 good stories. I'm very happy. I'm very happy. Happy ending indicates release of dopamine. And once the story is rather than pessimistic, if it is optimistic, it releases dopamine. And you are ready to write the next good story. Next good. It's like when you appear in examination, very first question that you appear and it comes to your mind, you are very confident to attempt the second one with better one. Same trend continues the WAT test where one good sentence written open up the doors for writing another good observation sentence. Within 15 minutes and 15 seconds, 60 sentences you are writing. Same is applicable even in the case of SRT, which you are writing. Okay, what happens? What interview? On the contrary, a candidate with fickle and fragile personality, whose personality itself is not good. So rather than telling what to write, you must really concentrate in improving your personality. Fragile personality did show mental block, lack of imagination with low-level ideas, indicate release of cortisol. Their performance remained much below the expectation. Real-time assessment of 360-degree input generally confirms not so good personality with many fractures and gaps. Cortisol release probably may have been because he had many things to hide and restricted their imagination and thinking ability. Okay, now what were the other two techniques? Now perform an interview. Similarly, as in TATWSRT, a candidate performed very well in interview if he had a fair amount of credential and past performance to show and talk about which may be academic, sports, or any other activities. He may not be excellent in all. At least you would be good in something. He will be brimming with confidence if he has had fair, good interpersonal relationship with friends peers, and parents. This also implies good character and personality with adequate positive experience. As a result, he is at ease to answer all questions and he is attentive, indicating release of oxytocin. Reverse, candidate nervous, inappropriate answer indicate release of cortisol. He gets into a problem. It's a problem. Okay. Now, what happens in the GTO task? Same goes to the GTO task. What happens there? As in psychology interviews, same thing applies to GTO. If he finds himself better than his competitors in the group, his confidence swells and he starts performing better. Indicate release of oxytocin and cortisol. Otherwise, this continues in all tasks. And he just performing, he's just doing it. Okay. So, in a strict sense, complete SSB, as we have already learned till now, is testing is a storytelling. As performance is based on past event, past knowledge, and experience. It is story because the way you narrate a story with ample imagination and application decides your success. You will write good story if and only if your acquired personality is right. So your concentration will have to be changing and cleaning. I always say use the strongest detergent, Nirma powder, and keep washing your personality. Performance, all technique depends upon how well you have learned from past experience. Were you open to experience? As we say in Big Five, open to experience, 5 O's: O for open to experience, C for consentence, E for extrovert, A for agreement, and for neuroticism. Did you develop right or adequate coping mechanism, like defensive mechanism or not? You will talk about your past to IO if and only if you had a good performance to talk. You will do well in GTO if and only if you have learned to use your intelligence to find a solution to problem and analysis. Okay. So that is the advantage of a storytelling is static storytelling has been enlisted as a change in attitude. We already talked about it. And same thing applicable in the GTO. Okay. Okay. Any doubt, any question, anything that you want to ask? This is what I have to talk about, the
art of storytelling.
Okay.